iDriveSoCal is brought to you by the very best auto retailers from across Southern California. When it's time for you to buy or even just kick the tires on the idea of buying, just go to iDriveSoCal.com and click on dealers. iDriveSoCal.com, click on dealers, and get connected. Now, on with the podcast. Welcome to iDriveSoCal, the podcast all about mobility from the automotive capital of the United States, Southern California. I'm Tom Smith, and as we have begun developing a track record of doing here on iDriveSoCal, we're mixing it up a bit today. This podcast is going to be about the iDriveSoCal podcast itself and how we created it to help you through your Southern California commute. We started back in December of last year. And we really just kind of started. There wasn't an official introduction of, hey, this is who we are and what we're all about. We're going to get to that in just a minute. Plus, I'm going to give you my personal email address because I'd like to hear from you and hear about how we can create better content to help you in your Southern California commute. We want to be even more helpful to you, but hold that thought for just a minute. First, I need to address our regularly scheduled programming, what we've been doing with our Monday podcasts to date. Typically on Mondays, I give you the mobility news headlines from the past week. These are the top stories that I've created from everything out there in media land. I summarize them and run them at the top of the podcast. Then I fill you in on what we have on tap for the rest of the week, the other stories we're covering. We simply refer to our Monday pieces as headlines and coming up. But here's the thing with headlines and coming up. Our iDriveSoCal editor and marketing manager doesn't like them much, and neither does my wife. Michael Palmquist is our editor and marketing manager, and he doesn't like headlines and coming up much because of the podcast's lifespan. Because we do a new one each week, the content is dated and considered old every 6 days. So it doesn't help us grow our audience much. And my wife doesn't like headlines and coming up much either. And for that matter, my dog and infant son, while they can't speak, they can definitely communicate. And I can tell with certainty that they feel the same way about headlines and coming up. They don't care for it too much. The reason they don't like it is because I spend no less than 6 hours during the weekend of what would otherwise be quality family time by locking myself in my office and working on H&C. That's the acronym for headlines and coming up. As it's become known. It's literally a thing. H&C. I got to go do H&C. While these podcasts are usually only 5 minutes, they're entirely scripted, and it takes time to write, a long time. I love the saying, I can't remember who it's attributed to, but probably many writers at this point. It goes something like, I don't like writing, but I love having written. And so true that is. And then there's the other one, I believe this is Mark Twain's, something like, I apologize for the long letter. I didn't have time to write something shorter. If you're a regular listener, then you know that H&C podcasts are pretty highly produced pieces. But those highly produced pieces take time to write, and even more time to write concisely and well. I try to do it with some wit and humor. It doesn't always come across, but I try. I do honestly enjoy them because they provide me an opportunity to take some subtle and at times not so subtle jabs at politicians and really read between the lines of what's happening in the news that we media folks are reporting. Now, when Micah and my wife have addressed changing it up and not doing the headlines and coming up, I've encountered their suggestions with creative reasons why I need to keep doing them. And to be honest, maybe my reasons make sense and maybe they don't. But to be even more honest, I can admit that sometimes I get focused on something and that's just it. I'm focused on it. So I'm trying to take a step back here, which brings me back to the top. With this episode, we're mixing it up. No headlines from last week's mobility news or what's coming up this week. As much as I truly want to cover both those topics, I'm not going to. But between you and I really want to. You'll just have to wait and see what we have planned for later this week. And trust that it's going to be good. As I say in the beginning of every podcast, iDriveSoCal is all about mobility from the automotive capital of the United States. Here's what that means. There's a ton happening within the mobility space. Now, a few people have noted that the word mobility reminds them of the needs of elderly folks to get around with wheelchairs, walkers, and the like. In this age of tech innovation, that's not what mobility refers to, and certainly not what I'm referring to when using it. And I believe that if that's your perspective now, it will soon change. What mobility does refer to is how we humans get from points A to B. And not only us humans, but also how we ship our merchandise from points A to B. Quite literally, how things move around. Thanks to innovative technologies, everything is being impacted. How we move across town, between cities, from continent to continent, even how we move between planets is evolving. So, iDriveSoCal is a news media organization that covers mobility news. And we do it from Southern California, which we refer to as the automotive capital of the United States, but also really the automotive capital of the world. We address our region in that manner because we have the worst traffic by many measures. And we have the worst traffic because we're an automotive society. We're not New York, where public transportation prevails. Everybody drives in LA. Yes, we're working on making strides with public transportation, but the vast majority drives and has to. And what comes with having the worst traffic problems is the most innovation to address those problems. And because everyone needs a car to drive, we work closely with a handful of car dealers for a couple of reasons. First, we tap into their incredible knowledge base of what's happening within their various brands. Hybrid, electric, and other alternatives to the traditional combustion engine, different levels of automation and driverless technologies. Every vehicle manufacturer is dealing with these topics at an ever-increasing rate. Second, we partner with a select group of new car dealers so that when you're ready for your next new technological wonder on wheels, we can seamlessly connect you to the best pricing and service the Southern California region has to offer. iDriveSoCal is a growing community, and members of communities work together. And that brings me to my request for you. First, let me thank you for being a member of our community. I sincerely appreciate your participation. Our entire iDriveSoCal team appreciates you. Thank you from them. Thank you from me. With that in mind, here's a blank check for you to fill in. Tell us what you want us to cover. Tell us what you need to make your Southern California commute more tolerable. Let's see if we can crowdsource some solutions to the insanity that is traffic in Southern California. I'm not promising that we can cover everything that's asked of us, or even close to everything. And I'm not saying we're going to find answers to all the problems, or really answers to any of them. But we can try. We can curate the conversation and be the advocates for drivers throughout Southern California. With that in mind, we'd really love to hear from you. Have an idea for a story or topic you think we should consider covering? Please let us know. Something driving you especially nuts about your commute? Let us know. And that's a big one, right? I've thought of setting up a phone line so that when you're stuck in traffic, ready to completely lose your mind, you can just call the line on the recorded message, totally let it rip, and then we can put all those together on a every so often basis, edit them together, bleep out what will surely be the plethora of colorful language, and edit it all together in some hilarious piece. That could be pretty funny, right? Don't you think? Anyway, the sky's the limit. I want to hear from you. We want to hear from you. Please reach out. As promised, here's my personal email address. It's tom@iDriveSoCal.com. Simple, right? Spelled out. It's TOM at I, the letter I, DRIVESOCAL.com. iDriveSoCal.com. And oh yeah, I'd love to hear what you think about headlines and coming up. Should we keep doing them each Monday? You tell me. Maybe we'll make headlines and coming up a newsletter instead of a podcast. That might be the way to go. So if you email me, I'll automatically add you to our newsletter distribution list. My email, one more time, is tom@iDriveSoCal.com. That wraps up this podcast. For iDriveSoCal, I'm Tom Smith. Thanks for listening.
This episode was engineered and edited by Micah Palmquist.